Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be ranking each and every city in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion from worst to best. This is going to be based on which ones I would actually want to live in real life. So the number 8 spot is the one I would least want to live in, and the number 1 would be the one I would most want to live in. Notice I said 8 because I'm not going to be ranking Kavach because it got destroyed. So I can't really rank it because I haven't really seen much of it, and I haven't seen any of it where it was not destroyed. And of course there are no quests there besides just fighting off the invasion. And that brings me to the next point, which is the criteria for the ranking. So this is obviously my opinion. My list is probably going to be pretty different than yours. And like I said about the quests, I mentioned that because the quests do play a role in the ranking. Like what happens in the quests will be part of it, and the people who give the quests make a difference. So if the people are nice, then I'm gonna want to rank that city higher. Aesthetics play a role as well. I care a lot about how the place looks and feels. And yeah, that's really about it. We'll just see what happens as we go along. I'll explain why I put each city where I did, and let's get started. So coming in last place is Breville. Breville is a yucky place. The buildings are all made out of wood, and that's the only place that's like that. All the cities have brick houses. They have nice sturdy brick houses. I'm pretty sure. I hope I'm not mistaken on that. Actually, the houses in Bruma might be made out of wood. But still, those look like cozy log cabins, whereas these look like they're gonna fall apart any second. By the way, this is completely off topic, but I keep feeling it and it's very uncomfortable. My pinky is like cramping up. Or not cramping up, but like it's very tight. It's super tight right at the bottom where it connects to the palm of my hand. But anyway, where was I? Yeah, the houses look super shabby. I think that's the right word, but you can probably tell what I'm trying to say. They just don't look nice, and they don't look like somewhere I would want to live. And just the town in general, obviously the houses aren't super nice, and that's because in general, it's a poor place. People in Breville are poor. And so I'm just basing this off of being a normal person living in each city, just being the average person from each one. So I would not really want to be poor. I mean, the people here don't seem that bad. I'm gonna be honest, this is probably one of my least experienced cities. I haven't spent the most time here in the game, but most of the people don't seem too bad if I recall correctly. The guy at the bar seems pretty chill, and hearing about stories like the Forlorn Watchman, that would actually be really cool. Most of the people don't seem too bad, except for the one guy who you have to kill for the Dark Brotherhood. The guy who is sometimes there, he travels from city to city, and he's sometimes in Breville, and that's a shame if I was living there, because he's an asshole. Whenever you try to talk to him, he says something like, "I don't have time for small talk." He's just a rude person. And also the scuba den. I would not want to have that near me. I would not want to live near the den of skooma where there's a bunch of drug addicts. No thank you. Coming in at second to last place, I really want to put it higher, but if I'm being honest, there are just some things that I can't ignore. And I'm talking about Leywin. Leywin is the 7th place on my list, and like I said, I wanted to put it higher, but there are just some things that are undeniably not very good. For one thing, it rains a lot down here. It is almost always raining. Well, maybe not that much, but it does rain a lot. And while actually playing the game, I don't mind it. I actually like the rain in the game because it looks nice, but being there in real life and having it rain all the time would not be optimal. And plus the buildings are all spread out. It's not like Skingrad or even the Imperial City, where the buildings are close together. In Leywin, if you want to get somewhere, you have to walk out in the open, and it's probably not that close either. The long walk isn't the issue, but when it's raining and there's nothing really to block it, then that's not going to be a fun time. And so because it rains a lot, you're probably gonna spend a lot of time indoors. But then the house you can buy isn't even that big or nice. And I don't even think there's a window. I could be wrong on that, but if that's true, then like I said, the rain looks nice, but you can't even see it without going outside. And overall, the town has a nice feel to it, and that's why I wanted to rank it higher, because I really like how it looks and feels, the aesthetic if you will. But besides the rain and the looks, One of the things that I want to mention is that some of the members of the Fighters Guild were getting quite rowdy at the tavern. Also, I want to mention that it is right along a river, and going there to fish would be pretty nice actually. But the problem is, another thing I should mention is that Leeuwin is all the way at the bottom of the map where it's hot and muggy. So the climate isn't great, but like I said, I wanted to rank it higher. And originally when I first thought about it, I imagined I would have Leeuwin higher on the list, but then I realized it probably doesn't deserve to be that high. Next at number 6 we have Shadenall. Shadenall seems like a nice city, but there are some questionable things going on here. Immediately the first thing I thought of was the corrupt government. One of the first quests I did when I played through the game was the one in Shadenall where you have to deal with the corrupt government. There was one guy who was making all these new laws and finding ways to fine people, and that just doesn't sound like the type of place I would want to live in. Just constantly getting money taken from you. One guy even got evicted from his house because he couldn't afford to live there anymore. That just doesn't sound like a nice place to live. And another thing is the Dark Brotherhood. The Dark Brotherhood has their headquarters in Shadenall, and even if they didn't bother me specifically, just having them around and seeing them walking on the streets wouldn't be something that I would be happy about. And even if I didn't even know what... And even if I... Let me try that again. Wow, this is actually hard to say. And even if I didn't even know about them, the abandoned house is still suspicious either way, whether I know about it or not. If I'm walking around the city and there's a boarded up house, that's going to be pretty ominous to look at, and that might creep me out. Another thing is that the Count himself is a little bit questionable. There's rumors going on about him, and if I have to question whether or not the Count can do a good job and, be a good leader and take care of the citizens, then that's not a good thing. But on the bright side, the city itself is quite good looking. The houses are nice, and they're quite large as well. And the city just looks nice, like I said. I could definitely see myself going for a walk across the bridges. But despite that, it's still not a great place to live. At number 5, this might be a surprise, but it's the Imperial City. I honestly am not too big of a fan of the Imperial City, and I'm not really too sure about it, but just given that it's like the main city or the capital city, I would assume that it's probably pretty good and probably ranks high on most people's list. But if I'm being honest with myself, this is where I would have to rank it. And really one of the main reasons for putting it this low is the fact that it's a big city. It's all close and tight like a city is, and I'm not really the biggest fan of that. The other cities are kind of like that, but this one just feels more like an actual city, whereas kind of the others just feel like villages. And so I just wouldn't want to live in that type of big city environment. Although now that I think about it, there are actually some real reasons for not wanting to live here. For one thing, there's the Thieves Guild, which has their headquarters or whatever in the Imperial City. Or at least they operate within the city, and basically that just means there's a lot of crime and theft. And besides the Thieves Guild, I heard the NPCs say there's a lot of theft in the Imperial City. So that obviously is something that I wouldn't want to deal with. And another thing is that there's an actual vampire hunting people at night. There's a vampire loose on the street at night. And so just living there, you're at risk of theft, and walking at night puts you at risk of being attacked by a vampire. It's not looking too good for the Imperial City. Although it is the center of the map, the country I guess, and there's also a lot of guards to protect you from those bad things. And another thing is that there's tons of shops and people to talk to. Of course, being a big city, this place has the most amount of places you can go, like shops and things like that. I haven't mentioned that up until now, and that's just because for most of the cities it's pretty much the same, except for this one because it's a lot bigger. The people also seem nice, and there's a ton of them to meet. Although, like I said, I don't really like the city environment, or even really the visual aesthetic of the city. I don't really like the way the houses look, and the insides aren't super nice either. For the normal houses at least. I've never actually bought a house in the Imperial City in the game, so I'm not really sure what kind of house you get. But yeah, the danger and the fact that it's a big city makes it not super high on my list. And coming in at number 4 we have Bruma. Bruma is of course the snowy town. It's all the way at the top of the map where it's nice and cold. Well, one of the reasons I have it this high is, even though it's cold, these houses look super nice and cozy. I could definitely see myself relaxing in one of these houses with a book, or maybe going to the bar, and it just seems like a nice place. Yeah, it's not the most exciting, but it just looks like a nice cozy place to settle down. Although, of course, the main issue is that it's cold. And not only is it cold, it's always cold. The cold isn't too bad. Sometimes it's nice, but sometimes it's not. And having it be cold all the time, sometimes I wouldn't like that. I might get sick of it. But that's really the only thing I can complain about. There's not a lot going on, and it's honestly just a nice place. Actually, now that I think about it, this thought just came to me, but living in Bruma and having a vacation home in Anvil where it's nice and warm sounds amazing. But obviously I can't factor that into the list. That would be nice though. At number 3 I have Skingrad. Skingrad is a pretty nice place to live. There really doesn't seem like there's a whole lot to complain about. There's not really any big issues or problems that I can think of. And there's also a lot of good things that it has going for it. One of the things that I like is that the houses all look nice, and they feel fancy. I like the look of the houses, both exterior and interior. Another thing is the way the streets are really tight-knit and close quarters. Now I know that I said for Imperial City that I didn't like that it was a big city, but this feels different for some reason. I just like this one more. And I like that it's more cobblestone. It feels more medieval. For some reason it just feels different, and I like this one more. I like the way it feels, and the layout is also nice. Again, the tight-knit streets and just the design of the city is well done. I also just really like the way it looks, the cobblestone aesthetic. It kind of reminds me of Undead Burg from Dark Souls, but obviously not as hostile, and of course it's on the ground. Also, the vineyards are pretty cool. Having that nearby and being able to enjoy that would be pretty nice. Skingrad has a lot, like I said, there's a lot going for it, and there's not a lot to complain about either. There's not a lot of crime, and it's overall a nice place. So at number 2 we have Anvil. Anvil is an amazing place. It seems like such a cool place to be. I really enjoyed just the feel of the town, especially the docks. The docks were amazing, and I could definitely see myself taking a stroll there and just taking in the sights. Also, the weather is nice, and of course having that dock, the sunset is amazing. Honestly, if Anvil was just a dock with a few buildings on it, it would probably rank pretty high. And the people here are nice too. But if I'm being honest, Anvil isn't a perfect place because there is quite a bit of crime. There's the women who go into the bar and trick guys into going to their house so they rob them. I'd like to think that I wouldn't fall for that. Or even if I didn't know that it was fake, I'd like to think that I wouldn't do that type of thing. But who knows. There's robbers at I can't remember if it was one of the stores or the tavern. And then besides the crime, there's some things like the mountain lions and the haunted house. For one thing, having mountain lions near you would be concerning, but also that's just a dick move to do that. Yeah, having pet rats is weird, but they're not doing anything to you. I know I said that people were nice, but I take that back about the person who did that. I can't remember her name, but that doesn't seem like a nice person. And of course the haunted house. Even if I didn't buy and live there, that's still something to be concerned about. Well, I guess the ghosts might just stay to themselves there, but still, even with a few bad things, Anvil seems like a pretty good place to live. And here at number 1 we have Coral. Coral, since the very first moment I walked into Coral, I thought it was great. It was my favorite of the cities, and it's honestly the best. There's no crime, at least I don't think there is. I don't think there's a lot. Well, the Honor Blade did get stolen or was missing for a while, but that doesn't really affect me. But the people are all super nice in Coral. It's at a nice location, it's close to the capital, and of course it's in a good location for the climate in terms of latitude. It's also a very nice looking town. It's really pretty, and I love the big tree in the center of the town. That's actually amazing. But the houses look nice, they're nice to live in. It's honestly perfect. Coral is my favorite city, and easily the one I would want to live in. But yeah, that's my list. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I'd love to hear what you think. I hope you liked the video. If you did, a like or subscribe would be appreciated. Thanks for watching everyone, and I will see you later.